morning. So hi everyone, welcome. My name is Isabelle and I'm here with my colleagues Georgia and Anita today. So Georgia and I will be presenting, and we're both Service Development and Promotion Officers with Merri Health, working on the Carer Gateway program across Victoria, and we'll explain a little bit how Merri Health fits in here. And then Anita Craig is the Care Engagement Coordinator, who's our manager, and she'll be here having a look at the chat and answering any questions. So feel free to pop anything in the chat and Anita will get back to you as we are presenting. If not, we'll have plenty of time for some questions at the end as well. So before we start off, I just want to acknowledge country. So for me, that is that I'm on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and as well as anyone who identifies as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander here today. And today we're going to be talking about the Carer Gateway program here in Victoria. And we'll just start off by going over who a carer is. So the Carer Gateway uses the Carer Recognition Act of 2010, and it basically defines that a carer is anyone who is providing unpaid support to a family member, friend or partner. It could even be someone like a neighbour, and that person is living with disability, mental illness, a chronic health issue or is frail age. The word unpaid here more refers to whether they're like an employed carer. So if you're an everyday unpaid carer, but you do receive another pension, for example, or another package, that's fine. It's just to differentiate between, say, a carer support worker or a family and friend carer. So we know that caring situations are hugely varied, and carers come from all parts of the state, all different backgrounds and all ages as well. So at Carer Gateway, we support people as young as 6 or 7, all the way up to the end of the lifespan. And we do have a focus on young people who are aged 25 or younger in our Young Carer program as well. And what we know from the data is about 1 in 8 people in Australia are carers. And what we also know is there are a lot of people who have caring responsibilities who perhaps don't identify with the term carer. So that's one of the reasons why we're really glad to be here today to speak to people who are carers, people living with disability, service providers or researchers as well, so that you can identify if you might know people who do have caring responsibilities but don't identify with that term carer, because they may be eligible for supports and services that they're not aware of. So I will now I'll talk to this one, Georgia, and then I'll go to you. So the Carer Gateway is a national program. It's funded by the federal government, and it aims to connect carers all across Australia to a really consistent access to supports and services. So no matter where you live in Australia, and for us at Merri Health, no matter where you live in Victoria, you can access the same services as anyone else. The Carer Gateway has a central contact point. So as you'll see here, there's one phone number, which is the 1800 422 737, or the Carer Gateway website, and that's the same contact point for everyone across Australia as well. The aim of Carer Gateway is to reach carers before they reach crisis point themselves, although we know that doesn't always work out in practice, as people often do reach out when they really need help, but we do aim to reach people before that point and to provide them with some capacity building and skills to manage their caring role. And the other thing that's really important to just emphasise before we move on is that Carer Gateway is really here for the carer. And the aim is that other services like the NDIS are there for the person with a disability, My Aged Care for the person who's aged, and so on and so forth. But we're really here for the carer to see how they're going in the caring role and support them in their journey as a carer as well. So I'm now going to pass over to my colleague Georgia, who's just going to speak about how the Carer Gateway operates in Victoria.
Yeah, hi, and thank you for that intro as well. So here in Victoria, the Carer Gateway network is led by Merri Health, which is where Isabelle and I are joining you from. So Merri Health do a lot of the statewide processes, including carer engagement, where our team works. They're also the first point of contact if you do call up, or if you do submit a request for callback through that website. You'll first speak to a team at Merri Health that does intake. They just get your details, things like that. And then they'll put you in touch with the local provider in your area. So you can see here on the screen that Merri Health Carer Services deliver the program in most of the north and west of Melbourne, with Bendigo Health doing a portion of the west. Uniting Vic Tas and Alfred Health are our partners over in the east. We'll also show you a map here with our regional and rural partners, which include Barwon Health, Ballarat Health, Bendigo Health, Family Care, and Uniting Vic Tas once again. While we like to show you this map so that you know maybe which local provider you might work with depending on where you're calling in from if you do get in touch, the core of our service is really aiming to connect people with a really consistent and accessible service no matter where they live. So by having this one point of contact through the Merri Health team, we're able to be a single point of contact for any carers in the community or any referrers who might be here today. But we can also then connect that carer in with a local provider who really knows the area, who can deliver a really tailored program and tailored support for that carer. We know that the supports and services that are available and that are accessible in the community might be a little bit different in terms of what that community needs up in Mildura versus maybe here in Melbourne. So we're able to work with local providers to be able to provide a really good accessible service no matter where somebody's based. So one of the things that we really like to highlight in this session is the eligibility for getting access to supports and services through Carer Gateway. It is quite an accessible service compared to some other federally funded programs. So the core things that need to be in place is that a carer needs to be a family or friend carer. So as Isabelle said earlier, that's an unpaid carer, so somebody who's not employed in that caring role as their job, but somebody who's doing it for somebody in their life. It's also a requirement that that caring role is ongoing or likely to be ongoing for 6 months. That 6-month requirement isn't intended to be a barrier to the service. We know for some chronic health conditions or some mental health conditions, it can be difficult to predict if the caring role will be ongoing for that time. However, the 6-month requirement is just to show the difference between a condition that's probably going to be ongoing and needs support and a caring role for a long period of time versus somebody who maybe, if their brother's, broken their leg at footy practice but will otherwise make a full recovery, they might be providing care for a short term, but they don't have an ongoing caring role. That 6-month requirement also doesn't apply if a care recipient is in need of palliative care or if the caring relationship has recently ended. We can provide supports in both of those cases. Some of the things that are not required for our service are also really important. We don't have any citizenship, residence or visa requirements. You don't need a Medicare card to access Carer Gateway. We're not means tested, so we don't look at the carer's finances or their care recipient's finances. We also don't affect any other government supports, and they shouldn't be affected by our supports. So if the carer or somebody else in their home is receiving supports through something like a pension or an NDIS or home care package, we should still be able to provide assistance to them. But of course, we will try and work with what other supports are in place for that home to make sure we're providing something that's really valuable and not just doubling up something that's already in place. I might pass the microphone back to you, Isabelle, to talk through how it works when people get in touch.
Thanks, Georgia. And you excuse the sound in the background. My washing machine's at the end of its cycle, and apparently it sounds a bit like a spaceship, so please bear with me. I'll just quickly talk through how Carer Gateway works, the process, if a carer gets in touch or if a referrer does as well. So the first step is to get in touch with the statewide team at Merri Health. So here you'll speak to the intake team, and what they'll be doing is taking down the basic details of the carer and the person they're caring for. And here they'll also be assessing any level of urgency or risk. So that could be things like risk of family violence, suicide ideation, or if there's any need for emergency respite, that'll be dealt with immediately by the Merri Health team. And then what happens is we will put the carer in touch with the local provider for their region. So say you called from Swan Hill, you would call up and speak to the Merri Health team in central team, and then you would be referred to Bendigo Health Service, who is a catchment, who delivers the service in that region. So when you go through to the support planning, that's with the local provider, and here they'll have a more in-depth with the carer, and in-depth conversation with the carer about their well-being. So we use a measurement tool that I'll go to next, and that really looks at well-being in different areas of life, so we can see where the carer is doing well, where they're not doing so well. And that conversation is really what's then used to put supports and services in place for the carer. So it's really a very individualised service, and it really depends on the needs of each carer as to what's put in place for them. And then, of course, we have a few chances to check in with the carer to make sure that the supports and services that have been put in place are doing what they're intended, and to check in and see if any other support is required. So this is just an image of the tool we use in the support planning. So it's something that's called a Carer Star. And what this is a tool that looks at 7 different areas of life that you'll see here. And these are areas that we know from research that are commonly impacted by the caring role. So things like your health, the caring role, how you're managing at home, time for yourself, how you're feeling, finances and work. This could be work or study or volunteering as well, depending on where the carer is in their life. And this is used to have a guided conversation to chat through these different areas and really see where the carer is doing well and where they might need some assistance. And in the areas where they need some assistance, this is where we can put some goals in place, and the supports and services are really there to help the carer reach those goals. So I might pass back to you, Georgia, just to touch on the supports and services that are available with the Gateway.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have just an overview here on this slide talking about things generally. We'll go into a few of our programs in more detail. So some of the things that we can offer include emergency and planned respite, counselling, coaching, connection to other carers, as well as support planning, carer-directed packages, and information and advice and online support. So if we'll go straight on to talking about respite care. So respite or respite care is where someone else takes care of the person with care needs for a period of time, which allows the carer to take a break. There's a few different versions that this can come in, which might be quite short term, just for a couple of hours each week, or they can be longer term, such as overnight or for a weekend. Planned respite can be accessed through our carer-directed support packages, which I'll speak to in just a minute. But we also have emergency respite care, which is available at times of crisis at short notice. So you may see down the bottom of our screen that the 1-800 number is active from Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. Outside of those hours, you can still call that number to access emergency respite care. The emergency respite care line is available 24/7. And can connect people up quite a bit quicker. One thing that you should be aware of is just at the moment in the current state of the ongoing COVID crisis and some of the challenges that are affecting the health system, there is a bit of a delay on non-emergency respite than what our typical system would be. While we are, of course, doing everything we can to place respite, we are also encouraging people to access some of our other supports and services where we can, so that we can make sure that there is emergency respite available when people really, really need it. We'll go on to speak about the carer-directed support packages. So these are some funding packages which provide carers with some choice and control over what supports are provided to them. They're available in a few different options and for some different target programs. One thing to be mindful of is that these funding packages are always used for services and supports, but are not generally provided as cash funding directly to carers. So we have 2 different programs, one of which is really targeting short-term, once-off practical items that are related to helping that carer engage in education or employment. So for example, over the last couple of years, we've been able to help a lot of our young carers have access to laptops so they can stay connected to schooling while schools have been working remotely. We do also have some funding in this program that we can help people access training courses or other things that can help a carer either find work or transition back into work if that's something they're interested in. We do also have a more ongoing carer-directed support, which can fund supports up to 12 months. And so this program can be used for things like planned respite, as I mentioned before, as well as some cleaning services, assistance with shopping, and assistance with transport related to the caring role. And we do have some additional flexibility in how we can provide these supports at the moment, in acknowledgement of some of the challenges the health system is facing at the current time. So I may pass the microphone back to you, Isabelle, to talk a little bit about counselling, peer support and coaching.
Thanks, Georgia. And just going to add one example of the flexibility that we can offer at the moment. A good example is something like meal delivery options, something like HelloFresh, Marley Spoon, depending what's available in that area. That's something that we can do for people who are going to be affected by COVID and lockdowns and etc. So I'll now chat through a couple of the other services. So in Carer Gateway, we offer counselling. The counselling is a time where carers can speak with a qualified counsellor about any concerns, feelings, anxieties that they're having related to the caring role and get support to manage their own health and wellbeing throughout the caring role. The counselling is quite flexible, could be either on the phone, via an online platform like Zoom, or it could be in person as well. So generally we offer 6 counselling sessions for carers in a calendar year. But if there is a need for sessions beyond this, there's really no reason why we wouldn't fund more, or we might be looking to see what other options are available for the carer in the community. So it's something like setting them up with a mental health care plan or seeing what other supports are available in their area. And the phone counselling, is available 8 till 6, and that's to speak with a counsellor straight away, which is a really good option for people who are needing some more urgent support. We also offer a peer support program at Carer Gateway, and peer support is really there to help carers connect with other people who've got similar lived experience and have a bit of respite and some socialising, and provide some stress and relief just through being able to share common experiences and have people who really understand what you've been through. So we have 2 options with this as well. The first option is online. So there's a self-paced forum online, which is moderated by a peer worker. So that's where people can share their experiences, share stories, ask questions and get responses from other carers. And then we also have a in-person program. In-person's a little bit in quotation marks at the moment because that might be over something like Zoom, depending on where the carers are living and what their circumstance is. But that's where a small group of carers get together. We generally have 4 sessions at the start that cover 4 key themes that we know are important in the caring role. And the aim is to help the group to stay sustainable and keep meeting if that's what they would like to do after the 4 structured sessions. Generally, groups could be put together depending on where the carers are living. It might be based on the care recipient. So it could be carers of someone with dementia, for example, or it could be based on the demographic of the carer themselves. For example, it might be an in-language group or older carers. It's quite flexible, and it really just depends on the demand from other people in the region and what the best fit is for the carers who are interested in peer support. And then the carer coaching, this is the last service that we'll talk about today. So the carer coaching is where carers can really have the space to work through their goals and what steps that they might need to take to reach those goals. And like many of our other services, there are 2 options here. So there is one-on-one coaching sessions, which could be, again, over the phone, via video conference or in person. And that's where they work with a coach one-on-one to really work through what goals are important to them, what steps they might need to take to get there, and use that space to talk about any challenges that they're experiencing reaching those goals. And then there's also the online self-paced option. So there's a variety of modules on the Carer Gateway website that can be accessed by anyone. You don't need to be registered with the Carer Gateway to access those. Anyone can go on and have a look. And the coaching modules cover some really key topics, like you'll see here: finances, health, emotions, communication, and carers can work through these at their own pace. You're welcome to do one or all of them, or start half and then come back later. So that's really flexible, and it can be a good place to start as well if you just like to dip your toe in and see what information is available, and maybe before you're ready to reach out, could be a good option to see what support is there. I can talk through quickly getting in touch. So the best way for carers to get in touch is to call the 1-800 number. So as you'll see there, it's 1-800 422 737. And this is generally open from 8 till 5 on weekdays, but outside of that, you can leave a message, of course, and receive a call back. And you can also organise emergency respite out of that time. As Georgia mentioned before, you can also go onto the Carer Gateway website. There's a whole host of information on the website about what Carer Gateway is, what supports and services we offer, other information that could be relevant to carers, such as links to Centrelink carer payment, and the Victorian carer card and a whole host of other things. You can also request a callback from the Carer Gateway website, and then you'll receive a callback within a couple of days from the Merri Health intake team. And for service providers, if there are any service providers here today, we do have an e-referral option for service providers. So using the link here, you can log on and there's an online form where you can enter the details of the carer, so basic details of the care recipient as well, of course, with the consent of the carer. The benefit of this is that if you already have the carer's details, you're saving the carer having to rehash all their details and their story again, which can be quite burdensome for carers. And we know that carers are generally quite time poor and have their plates pretty full. So this is a great option if you already have their details, or you can do it in a supportive way with the carer. And Georgia, I might pass to you to go over these last two bits of information that might be relevant to carers or service providers today.
Yeah, absolutely. We do like to close with just a little bit of information about services you may not be aware of. So one of which is the Victorian Carer Card, which enables access to some various discounts and benefits for carers in Victoria. So people have to be a resident here in Victoria, and unpaid carer with the same kind of definition as we provided earlier. However, foster and kinship carers are also eligible. There's the link down in the bottom at carercard.vic.gov.au for information about that program. And we also like to let people know about the Disability Gateway, who many people have seen popping up on their social media. They've got a great little ad campaign. So the Disability Gateway is also funded by the Australian federal government, but they are a different program to Carer Gateway. So Disability Gateway provides information on services and resources for people with a disability, as well as their families and carers. So if anybody's interested in finding information about any aspect of living with disability or any of the areas of life up on the screen, including income and employment, aids and equipment, housing and transport, and a few others, you can call the Disability Gateway for a bit of assistance in finding the information that you need. They can also connect people up with Carer Gateway. We're both very familiar with each other's services, but they've got some really great programs that they can help connect people through to. I think that's the end of our formal section, but we